The first officer on scene didn't know about the Instagram photo. All he knew was that it was just after 7:30 a.m. on July 15, 2019, and a gray sedan was parked awkwardly along a dead-end road in Utica, New York. The engine was off. The driver's door stood open. Birds scattered from the trees as patrol lights washed the quiet street in red and blue. Inside the car sat 21-year-old Brandon Clark. He wasn't running. He wasn't resisting. He was sitting in the driver's seat, staring ahead with a blank expression, his hands resting loosely on his lap. When officers approached, they noticed something darker, dried blood on his neck and shirt. "Where is she?" one of them demanded. Clark's voice was steady. "She's in the woods." A chill moved through the air. Minutes later, officers followed a narrow trail behind the parked car. The trees thickened, swallowing sound. About 200 feet in, they found her. 17-year-old Bianca Devins lay on the ground. There was no pulse. No movement. Just the suffocating stillness of a life cut short. But the most disturbing part wasn't just what had happened in those woods. It was what had already happened online. While police secured the scene, detectives' phones began to vibrate with frantic messages from local dispatch. Something was spreading across social media. Screenshots, links, reports of a graphic image posted to Instagram in the early hours of the morning. The image showed Bianca's body. It had been uploaded by Brandon Clark himself. By the time authorities discovered the account, the photo had already been shared, screenshotted, and circulated across platforms. Instagram removed the original post, but like all things on the internet, it had multiplied. The crime scene now existed in two places: the forest behind a quiet New York street, and the endless scroll of the internet. Detective Mark Williams, a seasoned investigator with the Utica Police Department, arrived at headquarters to control chaos. Officers weren't just processing physical evidence. They were racing to contain a digital wildfire. "Get everything," Williams ordered. "Screenshots, metadata, timestamps. I want to know exactly when that photo went live." Because the timeline mattered. According to early reports, Clark and Bianca had attended a concert in New York City the night before. Friends described Bianca as bright, artistic, deeply involved in online communities, especially Instagram and Discord. She was known for sharing her life, her style, her thoughts. Her world existed partly in pixels. Clark had met her through those same online spaces. At first, their relationship seemed like many modern connections. Messages, shared interests, inside jokes that only existed in DMs. But friends later told investigators that Clark's attachment ran deeper. Possessive. Intense. He didn't just want Bianca's attention. He wanted ownership of it. And when that ownership slipped away, something snapped. Detectives pulled Clark's phone. It was still in the car. The screen told a story before Clark ever opened his mouth. At 2:13 a.m., an image was uploaded to Instagram. The caption read, "Sorry F*** heirs, you're going to have to find someone else to orbit." The language was cryptic, but the meaning was clear. It was taunting. Final. Moments later, Clark attempted suicide inside the vehicle. When that failed, he remained at the scene until officers arrived. Back at headquarters, investigators began piecing together the hours before the killing. After returning from the concert, Clark drove Bianca to the secluded road under the pretense of talking. According to later statements, the conversation turned into an argument about their relationship. About jealousy. About other men. About status inside their shared online circles. In Clark's version, he felt humiliated. In reality, Bianca had simply wanted independence. Somewhere in that dark stretch of road, control turned into violence. But what transformed this case from tragic to globally infamous wasn't just the murder. It was the decision to document it. Digital forensic analysts traced the Instagram upload. The photo had been taken mere minutes before it was posted. The metadata confirmed it. The woods, the timestamp, the device ID, all pointing to Clark's phone. He hadn't panicked. He had curated. Detective Williams stared at the screen in disbelief. "He wanted them to see," he said quietly. The image wasn't just evidence. It was a message, to Bianca's friends, to the online community they shared, to anyone watching. As the investigation deepened, officers interviewed friends who described escalating warning signs. Clark's obsession. His resentment over perceived rejection. The way he monitored Bianca's interactions online. One friend recalled him saying, "If I can't have her, no one can." It sounded like something people say in anger. Until it wasn't. Meanwhile, the digital fallout intensified. Teens across the country reported seeing the image before it was taken down. Parents called schools. Counselors scrambled to provide support. Platforms faced renewed criticism over content moderation speed. Bianca's family was forced to confront the unimaginable. Not only had they lost their daughter, but her final moments had been broadcast to strangers. And yet, that same horrifying post became the cornerstone of the prosecution. Clark's defense would later argue emotional instability, a crime of passion, a tragic loss of control. But prosecutors had something stronger than witness testimony. They had intent, frozen in a timestamp. The act of photographing the scene, writing the caption, uploading it, waiting. It showed awareness. It showed consciousness of what he had done. Late that evening, as detectives finalized their preliminary report, another detail emerged. Clark had sent private messages to acquaintances immediately after the upload. In one message he wrote, "I'm sorry, Bianca." In another, more chilling line, "You all pushed her away from me." Blame. Deflection. Narrative control. Detective Williams leaned back in his chair, exhausted. Outside the interrogation room, Clark sat silently, staring at the table. The physical evidence was overwhelming. The digital evidence was damning. But one question lingered: why post it at all? Was it ego? Revenge? A desire for notoriety? As analysts dug deeper into Clark's online history, they discovered something unsettling: months of messages revealing an escalating fixation. Screenshots of Bianca's interactions with others. Complaints about orbiters. References to humiliation inside their shared community. It wasn't just about love. It was about image. And as midnight approached, a forensic technician walked into the room holding a printed report. "Detective," she said, her voice tight. "You need to see this." It wasn't just the Instagram upload. Clark had attempted to delete additional photos from his phone. Photos taken before the murder. Photos of Bianca sitting in the passenger seat earlier that night. She was smiling, unaware. And when investigators recovered the deleted data, they found something else buried deeper in the device's storage: a draft message never sent. A long paragraph typed hours before the concert. It read like a goodbye. But it wasn't to Bianca. It was to the world. And in that unsent message, Clark wrote a single line that changed the entire direction of the case. "Tonight, everyone will finally understand." Detectives looked at each other in silence. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. And that realization would transform the investigation from a tragic argument gone wrong into something far darker. Because if he had planned the post, what else had he planned? And when they pulled the full data extraction report from his phone, they found one more thing: a search history entry from earlier that week. How long does Instagram keep deleted photos? The race wasn't just to prosecute a murderer anymore. It was to understand a mind that had turned a killing into content. And what they uncovered next would prove that the photo wasn't just evidence of the crime. It was the reason the truth couldn't be buried. By the time the sun rose over Utica the next morning, the crime scene tape in the woods had already begun to feel secondary. The real battlefield was digital. Detectives weren't just reconstructing a murder, they were reconstructing a mindset. Every message, every search, every deleted file became a breadcrumb leading into Brandon Clark's inner world. And what they found was not the profile of someone who snapped in a sudden rage. It was the anatomy of obsession. Inside the Utica Police Department's digital forensics lab, analysts worked through the night extracting data from Clark's phone, laptop, and social media accounts. Instagram cooperated quickly, preserving server logs before anything else could disappear. Discord channels were archived. Private messages were subpoenaed. The timeline was tightening. At 12:04 a.m., Clark and Bianca left the concert venue in New York City. Surveillance cameras captured them walking side by side. She appeared relaxed. No visible distress. They stopped at a gas station at 1:47 a.m. Bianca went inside to buy a drink. She texted a friend, "Still out. Tired. Might head home soon." That text would be the last message she ever sent. At 2:03 a.m., Clark's phone pinged near the dead-end road in Utica. At 2:12 a.m., the fatal act occurred. At 2:13 a.m., the Instagram photo was uploaded. The speed was chilling. There was no gap for panic. No frantic calls. No attempt to conceal the body before going online. The act and the post were almost simultaneous, as if one was incomplete without the other. Detective Mark Williams stood over the glowing monitor as the forensic analyst scrolled further back into Clark's digital history. Weeks before the murder, Clark had been growing increasingly resentful over Bianca's online interactions. He frequently referred to other men in her social circle as orbiters, accusing them of trying to steal attention. Screenshots showed long rants about loyalty, about betrayal, about humiliation. In one message sent 3 weeks before the murder, Clark wrote to a friend, "If she keeps making me look stupid, I'll make sure everyone remembers my name." Another message, "They think I won't do anything. They're wrong." The words read like warnings disguised as venting. At the time they may have sounded dramatic. Now they felt like a countdown. Investigators then uncovered something even more disturbing. Clark had searched online forums discussing viral crimes, specifically cases where perpetrators gained notoriety after posting shocking content. He had browsed discussions about how quickly platforms removed violent images. He even read threads debating whether deleted posts could be permanently recovered. How long does Instagram keep deleted photos? The search history wasn't random curiosity. It was preparation. Meanwhile, detectives interviewed Bianca's friends. Many described Clark as intense but not outwardly violent. However, several admitted they felt uneasy about his fixation. One friend told investigators that Bianca had confided in her just days before the concert. She said he was getting too attached, the friend recalled. Like, if she didn't reply fast enough, he'd spiral. Another friend revealed that Bianca had been considering distancing herself from Clark. She hadn't formally ended anything, but she had begun pulling back, spending time with others, focusing on her own life. To Clark, that shift wasn't independence. It was rejection. And rejection in his mind was public humiliation. As detectives pieced together Discord chat logs, a pattern emerged. Clark was deeply embedded in online communities where status and attention mattered. Validation came through visibility, through likes, comments, and recognition. Bianca had social influence in those spaces. She was admired, followed. Clark wasn't. And in one archived chat conversation, just hours before the concert, Clark typed a message that investigators couldn't ignore: "Tomorrow changes everything." He deleted it shortly after. But deletion doesn't erase intent. The prosecution team began consulting behavioral analysts. The conclusion was unsettling. This wasn't just a crime of jealousy. It was an act fueled by image, by a desperate need to control the narrative. The Instagram post wasn't impulsive. It was strategic. By posting first, Clark seized control of the story. He forced Bianca's community to see what he wanted them to see. He framed the event before law enforcement could. He turned tragedy into spectacle. And for a brief window of time he succeeded. Across the country, teenagers woke up to screenshots circulating in group chats. Panic spread. Some believed it was fake. Others recognized Bianca immediately. Schools issued warnings. Parents contacted authorities. Even after Instagram removed the image, it persisted in private messages, saved on phones, hidden in folders. The internet never forgets. Back in interrogation, Clark remained eerily calm. When confronted with the search history, he shrugged. People look up weird stuff all the time. When shown the pre-written draft message, the one that read like a farewell to the world, his composure cracked slightly. "I was just venting," he said. But investigators weren't convinced. Because that draft wasn't emotional chaos. It was structured, deliberate. He described feeling misunderstood, mocked, sidelined. He referred to Bianca as the center of everything. And in the final lines he wrote, "After tonight they won't ignore me anymore." Detective Williams felt the weight of it. This wasn't about losing her. It was about being seen. As the case gained national attention, media outlets began dissecting the role of social media in the crime. Experts debated whether platforms could have prevented the spread of the image. Advocacy groups called for stronger moderation policies. Bianca's family, devastated, urged people not to share the photo further. They wanted her remembered for who she was, not how she died. Meanwhile, prosecutors prepared for trial. The digital evidence would be central. The timeline was airtight. The search history suggested forethought. The draft message implied planning. And the upload itself demonstrated consciousness of guilt. But there was one complication. Clark's defense team signaled they would argue diminished capacity. They would paint him as emotionally unstable, overwhelmed by rejection, incapable of premeditation. If they succeeded, the charge could shift. The difference between second-degree murder and first-degree murder would hinge on one question. Did he plan it? And that's when forensic analysts uncovered the final piece. Hidden within Clark's phone backups was a note created 2 days before the concert. It wasn't labeled clearly. Just a blank document saved at 11:38 p.m. Inside it contained a short list. Concert. Drive. Quiet place. Phone charged. 4 lines. Simple. Almost mundane. but in context, devastating. Detectives stared at the screen in silence. The note didn't explicitly mention violence. It didn't say kill. It didn't say post. But paired with everything else, the searches, the draft, the resentment, it felt like a blueprint. And if that wasn't enough, there was something else attached to the backup data. A deleted selfie video recorded minutes before the murder. In it, Clark stared into the camera. His face was tense, eyes glossy but focused. "They'll know," he muttered softly. The video cut off abruptly. Detective Williams felt a chill. Because this wasn't a man losing control in a heated argument. This was a man preparing for impact. And as prosecutors finalized their strategy, another unsettling detail emerged from the metadata. Something that suggested Clark may have attempted to test Instagram's upload process days before the murder. A private account. A temporary post. Quickly deleted. It was as if he had rehearsed. The courtroom battle was approaching. The world was watching. And Bianca's family braced themselves for the painful unveiling of every message, every image, every calculated step. But one question still lingered in the minds of investigators. If he rehearsed the post, did he rehearse anything else? Because sometimes the most dangerous part of a crime isn't the act itself. It's the possibility that it was only part of a larger plan. And as prosecutors prepared to reveal everything in court, they realized something chilling. The Instagram photo hadn't just helped solve the murder. It had exposed a performance. And performances, once examined closely, often reveal more than the actor ever intended. The courtroom was silent when the prosecution displayed the timeline on the screen. Dates, times, locations, upload logs. The jury didn't need to be told what they were looking at. The story assembled itself in real time, a slow, suffocating realization that this was not a crime born in a single moment of rage, but one shaped, sharpened, and rehearsed long before Bianca ever stepped into that car. Brandon Clark sat at the defense table, hands folded, eyes forward. He didn't flinch when the Instagram image was referenced. The jury never saw it, but they didn't need to. The prosecution described it clinically, carefully, sparing Bianca's dignity while emphasizing intent. "This," the prosecutor said, pointing to the timestamp, "is not panic. This is purpose." The defense countered with emotion. They spoke of instability, obsession clouding judgment, a young man unraveling under rejection. They described Clark as someone overwhelmed by feelings he couldn't regulate. But emotion alone doesn't explain preparation. The jury heard from digital forensic experts who explained how metadata works, how photos carry fingerprints that don't lie. They walked through the deleted drafts, the search history, the rehearsal uploads. Each step removed another layer of doubt. Then came the note. Concert. Draft. Quiet place. Phone charged. The courtroom felt colder. Prosecutors argued that the note wasn't random, it was logistical. A checklist. Not of violence but of opportunity. A plan doesn't need to spell out its final act to be a plan. The defense tried to reframe it. Coincidence. Innocuous reminders. But coincidence doesn't align itself so neatly with consequence. The most powerful moment came when investigators described the unsent message, the one written hours before the concert. The one that read like a farewell, not to Bianca, but to the audience Clark believed he was about to command. "Tonight, everyone will finally understand." That line lingered. Because it revealed motive without naming it. Fame. Validation. Control. Not love. Bianca's family listened in silence. They had already lost their daughter. Now they were watching her final hours dissected. Every message, every smile captured on camera, turned into exhibits. When Bianca's mother took the stand, she didn't speak about the photo. She spoke about her daughter's kindness, her creativity, her laughter. She trusted people, she said softly. That was her mistake. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdict, guilty. The sentence would be life in prison. There was no dramatic reaction from Clark. No tears. No outburst. Just a long exhale as if the performance had finally ended. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, microphones pressed forward, eager for a final statement. But Bianca's family declined interviews. They had said everything that mattered. As the case faded from headlines, the internet moved on, as it always does. New trends. New scandals. New faces to watch, follow, and forget. But something about this case lingered. Because unlike so many crimes, this one couldn't be reduced to a mystery solved or a villain defeated. It forced an uncomfortable truth into the open. The same platforms that connect us can also preserve our worst moments forever. The same attention that fuels creativity can twist into obsession. And the same image that spreads harm can also expose guilt. The Instagram photo was meant to shock, to dominate the narrative, to immortalize the killer. Instead, it became the thread that unraveled everything. Every attempt to control perception backfired. Every digital move left a trace. Every calculated step tightened the case against him. Clark believed visibility was power. But visibility is also vulnerability. In the months after the trial, social media companies quietly updated their moderation policies. Law enforcement agencies expanded digital forensics units. Schools began teaching students about online safety, about boundaries, about recognizing red flags in digital relationships. Bianca's name became a warning, not a spectacle. And somewhere in a prison cell, a man who wanted to be seen was left with nothing but anonymity. No audience. No platform. Just time. Time to sit with the truth that the internet, for all its chaos, had done the one thing he never intended. Remembered everything. This story unsettled you good. Was meant to. Because the next case you scroll past might already be unfolding, hidden in plain sight, one post at a time. And if you want to stay ahead of the stories the internet won't let disappear, make sure you're here for the next one.